10 seconds.
Good morning. I call the special call meeting for the Johnson City Board of Commissioners to order on Thursday, June 13th, 2019. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, ma'am. We have five ordinances for consideration this morning. The first being ordinance number 4691-19. An ordinance to revise, update, and add new sections to the code of the City of Johnson City regarding alcoholic beverages, beer, and wine by amending Title 8 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, ready for your consideration on second reading.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions of staff or comments before? I will entertain a motion first, and then we'll have further discussion. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve or move forward.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so further discussion.
For clarification purposes, would you like Ms. Sandos to go back over the highlights of what we're doing here?
I think that's a good idea. I'm sorry I didn't see you come up there.
What we've done in the revision of Title VIII is reduce the overall size, removing some of the repetitive sections, removing some of the outdated language, and one of the other main areas of focus was removing the language that would have prohibited the sale of beer and alcoholic beverages in theaters. And again, that's not just a pure focus to movie theaters, that is to all theaters. In addition, we added in language that would allow sales and consumption of beer at Pine Oaks. So these are the some of the. Let's see. All right. One of the areas of focus was reorganizing. As mentioned, this was reorganizing the sections for these of reference to make the title flow better whenever we have people that read these. Whenever we have applicants for a beer license, for temporary occasion license, we do ask them if they have read Title VIII. This makes this a little more reader-friendly. So we've removed some of the repetitive language. Again, removing the repetitive language also factored into the reduction of the size of the overall title. We've relocated the definition sections, moving it to the front. With that, we added in some additional definitions, including the definition of beer, the definition of clubs and lodges, definition for minors, and a definition for restaurants. All repealed sections, those were entirely removed. And again, that was for the ease of reference and readability of the title. We removed the sections that were no longer in compliance with our state laws. What we did is we brought Title VIII up to date with our current legislative Tennessee code. We updated those sections to correspond with the Tennessee liquor laws regarding the Sunday sales, possession, and consumption. We removed outdated terms that are no longer used: Coliseum, tonics, biters, face lotions containing alcohol, and then additional paragraphs that related to loitering to persons under the age of 21. We updated some of the sections to correspond with the anticipated new beer license application for on-off premises and the temporary occasion beer license. Again, this is going to be for ease of reference for our users constituents that are going to be applying for these licenses. There was the addition of Pine Oaks Golf Course to be included for the ability to sell. I have retail sales and consumption of beer on the premises. Pine Oaks was included in the same sections that are carved out for Cardinal Park presently, because those fall under the Parks and Rec. They are alcohol sales and beer are excluded on Parks and Rec premises. There's an exception for Cardinal Park that currently exists in Title VIII. Pine Oaks was included into those provisions to be similarly situated to Cardinal Park. So the same things that apply to Cardinal Park also apply to Pine Oaks, the same exclusions and the same allowances.
Sonny, correct me if I'm wrong, when the city ran Buffalo Valley, there were beer sales at Buffalo Valley, correct?
Yes.
I see.
So there's a
yes.
precedent
Yes.
for this. This is not coming out of left field.
Just another county.
And there's beer sales at Cardinal Park as well.
Right.
Baseball stadium.
Thank you.
Obviously, one of the more notable changes to Title VIII is removing all language that prohibits the sale of beer in theaters. What we've done there was the removing of theaters in the exclusionary paragraphs. And then there was the removal of some of the language or addition of language that would have prohibited the sales in theaters. What that means is we had some provisions that were in Title VIII that if certain things were shown, certain live acts shown on screens or exhibited, that specifically would have related to some things that you might see in a movie, such as a PG-13 movie, those would have been prohibited previously. That language has been revised to allow that, to allow movies to show some of those things where there are sales of beer taking place. So that's the reference for the directly or indirectly, removing the prohibiting language. We looked at other surrounding areas in Tennessee to look to see if this is being done anywhere else, how is it being done, and what are the implications of that where these ordinances have been revised or amended to allow these sales. What we looked at as far as movie theaters, and again, our ordinance is not specifically just to movie theaters, it is to theaters. But with regard to movie theaters, we found 9 cities in Tennessee that presently have language that allows these sales. You can see this is Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Murfreesboro, Franklin, Cleveland, Maryville, Eastridge. And you can see it's not just the largest cities in the state. We have some smaller ones in the state of Tennessee that are allowing these as well. And in that same line of research, we expanded our geographical regions to some of our contiguous states. We specifically looked at North Carolina and Virginia. These are the cities in North Carolina that are currently offering sales. There are, I believe, 15 different places in North Carolina. And there are 10 different places in Virginia. You can see many of those are actually quite close to our region. And then in the larger portion, these are some of the larger numbered states. Nearly every state in the continental United States has this type of allowance in their city ordinances.
Let's kind of back up just a minute to the criteria that someone who's going to be serving, whether it's in a theater or anywhere, what elements, is there a city permit that they have to get, or is there a state permit, or both? And what is the criteria that they will have to meet in order to serve?
In order for any business that wants to sell beer, they have to apply for a beer license, and that is through the city. The city will issue that beer license if there is the sale of the more than 8% higher alcohol content beverages. There has to be a state server permit that's going to be allowed. So that's the Tennessee Alcohol Beverage Commission that issues those. What we've done is we've allowed ours to be more in line, our beer application to be more in line with the Tennessee requirements regarding the server permits and the training that those servers are going to be required to obtain. But there still has to be an application that comes before the City Commission to be approved. There's many requirements that they still have to meet regarding their zoning, regarding the fire, the code issues that they've got to comply with. the occupancy. So there's the same requirements for any business that presently is licensed to sell beer. Any new business that is allowed under these revisions has to go through those exact same steps.
That's where all of our departments, fire, police, evaluate the applications that
Yes.
come in and either recommend or not recommend.
Yes.
That that's an appropriate site,
Yes.
ultimately, once it meets the ordinance that we pass. But for the individual themselves who, let's take a theater, and they're going to be serving beer, that individual has to be at least 21 years old. Is that correct from the state standpoint?
The individual that serves, they have to be 18.
Just 18?
18 to get a TABC
Okay,
license.
but they have to have background checks and a
Yes.
number of things in order to be eligible for that?
Yes.
Okay.
The
But that
background,
18 is a state number. They're
Yes.
the ones who set that? Okay.
yes, Mayor, that is from the state of Tennessee.
Okay. That's what I was going after.
There was a couple of things I was going to discuss. One of those that I did not know, it's the state requirement that you have to be 18 to serve, but you got to be 21 to drink, which is really strange to me. The other thing was for the sale of liquor. It's a lot more stringent than it is for beer and wine. And liquor, we can only have one license for every 5,500 people in the city. So right now, we can have 12 liquor licenses for the entire city. So that's correct in my understanding.
State law drives
So,
that, yes, sir.
and-
Well, liquor license for retail off sale, right?
Right.
That is, those are for what we call liquor stores.
Right,
Retail
right.
off-site,
That's-
yes.
That doesn't, we're passing this code, so it's
Right.
not just for the theaters, it's for the use of alcohol in the city of Johnson City for many different things that we're redoing some of the wording on the whole thing, and not just for the theaters, but we're making sure we're with the state.
Right.
And those state requirements, like I said, are a lot more stringent for liquor stores than they are for beer and wine sales, because, I mean, supermarkets and everybody else can sell beer and wine, but they're not allowed to sell liquor. So,
But the state is the one who exclusively approves the liquor permits.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah. We only can do the beer.
Yes.
Historically, did beer, if you go back in time when all of these beer ordinances were written across the country, was it pretty uniform that you excluded theaters? Or was that just a quirk of our ordinance?
That wasn't necessarily just a quirk of our ordinance. The state does not regulate beer. The state regulates those high alcohol content, which is the 8% and above, which is the high gravity beer is included there, but not your typical beer. It wasn't an anomaly that ours was worded this way, but I haven't looked to see when each one of those, that prohibiting language was removed from each one. But again, those were specific to each individual ordinance. It wasn't a state mandated.
Well, and I guess that's at the heart of it, the real question. You know, we're deliberating over an ordinance, and the ordinance really, at the end of the day, effectively does one and a half things, the half thing being the golf course. But the one thing that it really does is it takes theater out of a list of businesses that are ineligible to even apply for a beer permit. And that's what we're doing. This isn't about a specific theater, though a specific theater owner has initiated this conversation. So as the public speaks to this issue, offering input, the real question that needs to be made if you're going to persuade is, what is it about a theater that makes it unique or special amongst all the different kinds of businesses that make it either a public safety or public health consideration, that it not be allowed to do what another business might otherwise do?
like a bowling alley.
Like a
or
bowling alley or a trampoline
or
park,
those
right?
kinds of- Why is a
So
theater
what, yeah,
different?
is it because the lights are off? Is it because they're being amused and entertained? Wait a minute, that sounds like a baseball game, you know,
And we can drink beer at baseball games.
you can, and so that's really the question. And if the public comment can be focused on that, that will help us make a better decision. Moral arguments about it, this isn't the place we're considering that, because it's a legal activity. Now it's just a matter of why we exclude that one particular venue.
Well said. Good point. Other comments or questions of Ms. Santos?
Mayor, is there a
Yes.
specific time for public opinion and comments? Is that next time? Is it this time? Is it?
Since this is a special called meeting and it is in the morning, I felt like your better opportunity would be next Thursday at a regularly scheduled meeting. This doesn't require a public hearing, does it?
I was under the impression it required a public
It
hearing.
does, okay. I was just,
So we'll make public hearing on third reading.
third reading.
At our next
Yes,
meeting.
you can do public hearing at any reading of an ordinance, with the exception of the budget ordinance, which is required to be held on the first reading.
Which we had. So we will, we've had one request for input that was in writing, and we would ask people to go to the website and fill out the input request and list the topic for that. Okay? Ms. Santos, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Anything else? We have a motion and a second. Anything else?
Mayor,
Yes. Mhm.
As a point of reference, we all received comments for and against this throughout the past month or so. And so I took it upon myself to attend a venue that serves adult beverages in another town to see exactly the difference. And
You're taking your work seriously there.
absolutely.
Got it.
It's interesting that it was this particular kind of research. But I found it interesting that the sale of alcohol at a movie theater, in my opinion, did not change the nature or the overall aura of the movie theater compared to what we have here in Johnson City. There were just as many children, and it was just as family-friendly as what we have here in Johnson City. So that weighed on me as part of my decision in moving this forward.
Very good. Thanks for sharing that. What was the movie you went to see?
It was a children's movie.
Very good. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or discussion? Mr. Wilson, you can call the roll.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
And Mayor Brock.
Yes.
The next ordinance for consideration is ordinance number 4692-19. An ordinance to establish the property tax rates, appropriate funds, and adopt a budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Ready for your consideration on second reading. We had public hearing at our last meeting, and we had an explanation of it. And I think the one thing that, there were a couple of things that you wanted adjusted. Laura's got a spreadsheet to reflect changes, and this is what we have come up with. What the change was the additional appropriation to emergency communications to cover their needs. And with the county's commitment to raise their funding level, we need to raise our funding level by 76,935 to meet them at the same level of funding, so that both entities are funding emergency communications at the same level. You can see the appropriation, and what we are proposing is that we would decrease the budgeted line item for the purchase of road salt. The salt bins are full right now. We did not have much of a winter this year, so that enables us to get our reserves full. And if we have another winter next year like we had this year, we're in great shape. If we get the blizzard of 90, whatever it was,
Three.
we're gonna have to to appropriate additional monies to buy road salt next year. I mean,
Did
this
we
is,
deplete the account, or we just remove that amount? Is there
we
still a
just
balance
removed
in
this
there?
amount. That leaves what,
That leaves about $180,000 in that particular line item.
All right, commissioners,
Do you need a motion to make this amendment and then a motion on the actual ordinance, or
You can make the motion to approve the ordinance
with
with
this
amendment.
inclusion?
Yes.
Okay. And the county has agreed to that funding?
that's what I read in the paper.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's in the paper.
You could always do like we've done in the past, that this additional appropriation is contingent upon the county fulfilling what
I
they've
would make that
verbalized.
motion. I would make that motion.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Well, this is,
Wait a minute.
no, we need a motion for the full budget ordinance.
You made a motion to approve the
Full budget
budget with this
ordinance with this
amendment,
amendment, subject to the county's
Yes.
match.
and I seconded that.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the budget in general?
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Anything else? All right, Mr. Wilson, I think we're ready.
Commissioner
this fast.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Your next order of business is consideration of ordinance 4696-19. An ordinance authorizing conveyance of real property owned by the City of Johnson City to Triple G Ventures LLC and located at or near 119 North Commerce Street upon the terms and conditions contained herein, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Ready for your consideration on second reading. And I will remind you, this is a piece of property down on North Commerce Street that in a survey required to replat some properties together, it was discovered that their building actually extends over into an offset in our right-of-way. What this does is just give them a quitclaim deed to own what they've been utilizing for 100-plus years.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions? Mr. Wilson?
Sorry. Vice Mayor Wise, you seconded it, and
I moved
He moved.
approval, and
John.
John.
Commissioner.
thank you. Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next ordinance for consideration is ordinance 4697-19. An ordinance authorizing the conveyance to Fang Yang Shu certain property of real property, certain parcel of real property, an easement owned by the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and located in Washington County, Tennessee, upon the terms and conditions contained herein, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Ready for your consideration on second reading. This is a piece of property out on West Oakland Avenue that the existing required parking lot for a business is located out in our right-of-way. This is giving them an easement to utilize that property, but it protects us from any liabilities that may be claimed against us for interruption of business, loss of business, those types of things, and reserves the right for us and other utility providers to get in there and maintain, operate, relocate utilities that are in existence in that right-of-way. We would recommend your approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Wilson?
Commissioner Fowler? I'm sorry. Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Your next ordinance is consideration of ordinance 4690-19. An ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2019 budget passed by ordinance 4660-18 is ready for your consideration on third and final reading. And this is, as it says, an amendment to your existing fiscal year budget that recognizes some additional revenues and expenditures.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Wilson?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
That takes us to the conclusion of this morning's special called meeting of the Johnson City Board of Commissioners.
We might just mention, I'm sure people are up this morning watching our meeting, but we will be having the groundbreaking for the Legacy Plaza over at King Commons this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Would invite the public to come. It's going to be a very special project and addition to our city, particularly for our children. So invite everybody to come, and I guess we'll all be there. Anything else?
I would just ask, is there any other adjustments that you all are contemplating or thinking about to the budget?
Yes. I'd prefer to keep them to myself. The element of surprise, no.
We shall stand prepared, Commissioner.
We still have one more week, so
Yes.
if anybody has anything,
I still want lights in downtown, but you know, it's just, you can't have everything.
yeah,
Dancing fountain.
And dancing.
Ooh.
let's start. Well, hearing nothing else, meeting adjourned.